I'm excited to announce that I've joined the Creator Accountability Network. CAN is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing harassment and abuse through ethical education and a system of restorative accountability. I joined because I care about the safety and well-being of my community members. If you feel my behavior or content has harmed someone, please report it to CAN, either via the reporting form or their website, creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org, or via the hotline at 617-249-4255. They'll help make it right and avoid repeating that mistake in the future. CAN also needs volunteers from our communities to help with their work. So if you have skills you think would be helpful or time and desire to help, please visit their website to find out how you can volunteer. Most importantly, get the word out to other creators who you think would be interested in getting credentialed. Help us build safer communities together. This episode is brought to you by listeners like you, our intergalactic fuel, and the boost behind this mic. Thanks for supporting our cosmic journey through the universe of sci-fi. On this episode of the podcast, he embarks on this mission. So we'll go back to the beginning of the film where we saw where he was basically writing that note. So what led up to that was basically him planning out answers just moments away.
Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilization, we delve into the heart of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captured audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on CodeFlix.
Greetings, fellow sci-fi and fantasy lovers. Welcome to CodeFlix, where we explore the TV shows and movies that shape our imaginations. I'm Andre Bonner, and in today's episode, we are adventuring to the red planet Barsoom in the movie John Carter. What if you woke up on Mars and discovered you were stronger, faster, and destined to change an entire world? That's exactly what happened in John Carter, a film that was marketed as massive, must-see cinematic event. I remember seeing the ads and thinking, I have to catch this in the theaters. I eventually streamed it later, and honestly, I'm glad I did, because it turned out to be a visually stunning ride. John starts out as just an ordinary man from Earth, haunted, a little lost, but everything changes when he's suddenly transported to Mars, or Barsoom, as its inhabitants call it. It's there that he discovers his purpose, his strength, and his role in a conflict that could decide the fate of an entire planet. What stood out for me most was how this film celebrates the beauty of beings who look nothing like us. It's one of the first movies I saw that made me truly appreciate alien design. Not as monsters, but as characters with depth, culture, and dignity. And the deeper message it carries. No matter how different we may seem, we can still fight together for something greater.
John Carter is a 2012 American science fiction action-adventure film directed by Andrew Stanton, written by Stanton, Mark Andrews, and Michael Chabon, and based on A Princess of Mars, the first book in the Barsoom series of novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Produced by Jim Morris, Colin Wilson, and Lindsay Collins, it stars Taylor Kitsch in the title role, with Lynn Collins, Samantha Morton, Mark Strong, Kieran Hines, Dominic West, James Purefoy and Willem Dafoe co-starring in supporting roles. It chronicles the first interplanetary adventure of John Carter and his attempts to mediate civil conflict amongst the warring kingdoms of Barsoom. Several attempts to adapt the Barsoom series had been made since the 1930s by various major studios and producers. Most of these efforts ultimately stalled in development hell. In the late 2000s, Walt Disney Pictures began a concerted effort to adapt Burroughs' works to film, after an abandoned venture in the 1980s. The project was driven by Stanton, who had pressed Disney to renew the screen rights from the Burroughs estate. Stanton became the new film's director in 2009. It was his live-action debut, after his directorial work for Disney on the Pixar animated films Finding Nemo and Wall-E. Stanton and his Pixar colleague Andrews wrote the initial draft of the screenplay, which Chabon was brought on to revise. Filming began in November 2009, with principal photography underway in January 2010, wrapping 7 months later in July. Michael Giacchino, who scored many Pixar films, composed the music. Like Pixar's Brave that same year, the film is dedicated to the memory of Steve Jobs, who was CEO and majority shareholder of Pixar prior to Disney's acquisition in 2006. John Carter had its world premiere at the Regal Cinemas at LA Live in Los Angeles on February 22, 2012, and was released in the United States by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures on March 9, marking the centennial of the titular character's first appearance. It was presented in Disney Digital 3D, RealD 3D, and IMAX 3D formats. John Carter received mixed reviews, with praise for its visuals, Giacchino's score, and the action sequences, but criticism of the characterization and plot. It failed at the North American box office, but set an opening day record in Russia. It grossed $284 million at the worldwide box office, resulting in a $200 million write-down for Disney, becoming one of the biggest box office bombs in history and also becoming the film with the largest estimated box office loss adjusted for inflation ever, losing $149 to $265 million. With a total cost of $350 million, including an estimated production budget of $263 million, it is one of the most expensive films ever made. Due to its box office performance, Disney cancelled plans for Gods of Mars and Warlord of Mars, the rest of the trilogy Stanton had planned. Much of the film's failure has been attributed to its promotion, which has been called one of the worst marketing campaigns in movie history. In 1881, Edgar Rice Burroughs arrives at the estate of his recently deceased uncle, John Carter, a former American Civil War Confederate Army captain who died suddenly. Per Carter's instructions, the body is put in a tomb that can be unlocked only from the inside. His attorney gives Carter's personal journal to Burroughs, to whom Carter bequeathed his fortune. In a flashback to 1868 in the Arizona Territory, Union Colonel Powell arrests Carter with hopes that Carter will help in fighting local Apache. Carter escapes his holding cell, but fails to get far with U.S. cavalry soldiers in close pursuit. After a run-in with a band of Apaches, Carter and a wounded Powell are chased until they hide in a cave that turns out to be filled with gold. A Therns appears in the cave at that moment and, surprised by the two men, attacks them with a knife. Carter kills him but accidentally activates the Therns' powerful medallion and is unwittingly transported to a ruined and dying planet, Barsoom, known to Carter as Mars. Because of his different bone density and the planet's low gravity, Carter is able to jump high and perform feats of incredible strength. He is captured by the Tharks, a nomadic tribe of green Martians and their Jedak, Tarkas. Elsewhere on Barsoom, the red Martian cities of Helium and Zodanga have been at war for 1,000 years. Then, Jedak of Zodanga, armed with a special weapon obtained from the Thern leader Matai Shang, proposes a ceasefire and an end to the war by marrying the Princess of Helium, Dejah. The princess escapes and is rescued by Carter. Carter, Dejah, and Tarkas' daughter, Sola, reach a spot in a sacred river to find a way for Carter to get back to Earth. They discover that the medallions are powered by a ninth ray that is also the source of Therns' weapon. They are then attacked by a vicious race called the Warhoon under the direction of Shang. Carter and Dejah are taken back to Zodanga. A demoralized Dejah grudgingly agrees to marry then and gives Carter instructions on how to use the medallion to return to Earth. Carter decides to stay but is captured by Shang, who explains to him the purpose of Therns and how they manipulate the civilizations of different worlds to their doom, feeding off the planet's resources in the process, and intend to do the same thing with Barsoom by choosing then to rule the planet. Carter escapes and returns to the Tharks with Sola to request their help. There they discover a ruthless brute, Talhages, has overthrown Tarkas. Carter and an injured Tarkas battle with two enormous great white apes in an arena before Carter kills Hages, thereby becoming the leader of the Tharks. The Thark army storms Zodanga, but it is empty. Realizing their army is waiting outside Helium, Carter and the Tharks commandeer the Zodangan airships and fly to Helium. Carter defeats the Zodangan army, while then is killed and Shang is forced to escape. Carter becomes Prince of Helium by marrying Dejah. On their first night, Carter decides to stay on Mars and throws away his medallion. Seizing this opportunity, Shang briefly reappears and gives Carter another challenge by sending him back to Earth. Carter embarks on a long quest to find one of the Therns medallions on Earth. After several years he appears to die suddenly and asks for unusual funeral arrangements, consistent with his having found a medallion, since his return to Mars would leave his Earth body in a coma-like state, and makes Buros his protector. Back in the present, Buros runs back to Carter's tomb and uses clues to open it. Just as he does so, a Thern appears and raises a weapon before Carter appears and shoots the Thern dead. He reveals that he had never found another medallion. Instead, he devised a scheme to lure a Thern from hiding, thus winning Shang's challenge. Carter then uses the dead Therns medallion to return to Barsoom. Here's a thorough look at the themes and symbols in John Carter, 2012, with a conclusion that ties them together. Themes. 1. Heroism and reluctant destiny. John Carter begins as a man fleeing responsibility, scarred by loss. His journey on Barsoom, Mars, it charts the transformation from aimless survivor to selfless protector, underscoring how true heroism is often born from pain and choice rather than glory. 2. Colonialism and cultural conflict. The rival factions of Barsoom, Helium, Zodanga, and the Tharks mirror the politics of imperialism. The story critiques domination and exploitation, highlighting how alliances based on empathy can counter conquest and prejudice. 3. Love as catalyst for change. Carter's connection with Dejah is more than romance, it spurs his moral awakening, inspiring him to stand for a cause larger than himself and bridging divides between warring peoples. 4. Identity and belonging. Carter's displacement between Earth and Mars parallels his internal displacement from purpose after the Civil War. His adoption by the Tharks and eventual role as a Barsoomian champion reflect a search for meaning and community. 5. Fate versus free will. The meddling of the Therns, immortal manipulators, erases questions about whether events are predestined or shaped by personal agency. Carter's defiance of their schemes affirms that individuals can transcend imposed paths. Symbols. 1. The medallion, transport device. The artifact that brings Carter to Barsoom symbolizes opportunity and transformation, both a literal key to new worlds and a metaphorical door to personal rebirth. 2. Barsoom's dying landscape. The arid deserts and fading waterways reflect the stakes of indifference and exploitation. They also stand for inner barrenness, awaiting rejuvenation through courage and unity. 3. Dejah's scrolls and knowledge. Her scientific and political insights symbolize progress grounded in wisdom, suggesting that intellect and integrity can steer societies away from destruction. 4. Woola, the loyal Kalat. This creature embodies loyalty, instinctive goodness, and the unexpected allies one finds when crossing cultural boundaries. 5. Carter's Civil War past. His grief over personal loss and war weariness function as symbolic wounds. Overcoming them mirrors the healing that can happen when one finds new purpose. Conclusion. John Carter, 2012, blends pulp adventure with layered allegory, presenting a tale about redemption, identity, and the responsibilities that accompany power. Its themes of colonialism, free will, and cross-cultural understanding resonate beneath its spectacle, while its symbols, the medallion, the desolate Martian terrain, Carter's past, serve as touchstones for transformation. Ultimately, the film argues that heroism isn't born from destiny alone but from the courage to claim one's place and fight for hope in any world. Here's a detailed character analysis of the main figures in John Carter, 2012. John Carter, Taylor Kitsch. Role: former Confederate cavalry officer transported to Barsoom, Mars. Traits: disillusioned, haunted by loss, resourceful, courageous, reluctant hero. Arc: Carter begins as a man running from grief and responsibility after losing his family. On Barsoom, he is forced to confront purpose and honor, evolving into a champion for freedom and protector of the oppressed. His journey is about rediscovering belief in causes greater than himself. Key aspects: exceptional physical abilities on Mars mirror his inner potential. His gradual loyalty to the Tharks and Dejah shows his emotional awakening. Dejah Thoris, Lynn Collins. Role: Princess of Helium and brilliant scientist. Traits: intelligent, brave, politically astute, fiercely independent. Arc: Dejah balances duty to her people with personal freedom. She begins as a pawn in political marriage but asserts control over her destiny by fighting alongside Carter and seeking alliances to save Helium. Her bond with Carter grows through shared respect and ideals. Key aspects: represents the blend of intellect and strength, a progressive leader who bridges tradition and innovation. Tars Tarkas, Willem Dafoe. Role: Jeddak, leader, of the Tharks. Traits: wise, pragmatic, compassionate beneath a hardened warrior exterior. Arc: initially hides his empathy to maintain authority among the ruthless Tharks, but his friendship with Carter and loyalty to his daughter Sola reveal his integrity. He ultimately risks his position to defend justice, proving that honor can transcend cultural norms. Key aspects: embodies mentorship, moral courage, and the possibility of reform in rigid societies. Sola, Samantha Morton. Role: Tars Tarkas' secret daughter and Carter's ally. Traits: gentle, loyal, yearning for acceptance, quietly strong. Arc: Sola's story reflects rebellion against cruelty and tradition. She helps Carter despite personal danger and grows bolder as she sees kindness rewarded. Her journey highlights the power of compassion in hostile environments. Key aspects: represents emotional resilience and the transformative power of kindness. Matai Shang, Mark Strong. Role: Holy Thern manipulator behind Barsoom's political unrest. Traits: cold, calculating, enigmatic, manipulative. Arc: Matai Shang works from the shadows, exploiting conflict between Barsoom's races to maintain Thern control. He remains largely inscrutable, symbolizing hidden forces of exploitation and oppression. Key aspects: an embodiment of predatory elitism and the dangers of secret power. Then, Dominic West. Role: Prince of Zodanga, antagonist allied with the Therns. Traits: ambitious, arrogant, power-hungry. Arc: Then is driven by a desire for conquest, relying on Thern technology to overwhelm Helium. His opportunism contrasts with Carter's reluctant nobility, showing how greed corrodes leadership. Key aspects: a straightforward villain whose lust for power blinds him to the Therns' manipulation. Wooler. Role: Carter's loyal Kalet, Martian creature. Traits: playful, fiercely protective, fast, and devoted. Arc: Wooler doesn't undergo complex development but serves as an emotional anchor for Carter and a symbol of unconditional loyalty and joy amid danger. Thark Society, supporting. Key figures: Sarkoja, antagonistic elder, Talhages, brutal rival. Function: represent the harsh traditions Carter challenges, setting a backdrop for themes of reform, loyalty, and betrayal. Overall character dynamics. Carter's inner rebirth parallels Barsoom's political and cultural upheaval. Dejarantar's Tarkas embody agency and moral courage, while Solar and Wooler reflect loyalty and kindness. The villains, Matai Shang, Then, represent systems of control, technological, political, or mystical, exploiting ambition and fear. John Carter is a large-scale science fiction adventure film based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoom novels, directed by Andrew Stanton and released by Walt Disney Pictures. It was conceived as an epic that combined live action with extensive digital work to bring the Martian world of Barsoom to life. Clapperboard production. Director: Andrew Stanton. Screenwriters: Andrew Stanton, Mark Andrews, Michael Chabon. Producers: Jim Morris, Lindsay Collins, Colin Wilson. Studio or distributor: Walt Disney Pictures. Principal cast: Taylor Kitsch as John Carter. Lynn Collins as Dejah Thoris. Willem Dafoe as Tars Tarkas. Dominic West as Then. Mark Strong as Matai Shang. Filming period: 2010 to 2011. Locations: Utah, Lake Powell, Moab, Hanksville, stood in for Barsoom's deserts. Sound stages at Playa Vista Studios in Los Angeles handled interiors and blue screen work. Some segments were shot at Shepperton Studios, UK. Scale and budget: one of Disney's most expensive films at the time, reported $250M. The production required major coordination between practical crews and visual effects teams. Artist palette design and visual style. 1. Overall art direction. Supervised by production designer Nathan Crowley, known for The Dark Knight, who emphasized blending Edwardian adventure aesthetics with alien technology. The Barsoomian world was built to feel ancient and worn rather than sleek, giving it a lived-in authenticity. 2. Martian landscapes. Utah's striking rock formations were chosen to mirror the novel's descriptions of endless ochre plains and monumental mesas. Digital extensions created colossal cities, skyships, and twin moons, maintaining a sun-bleached palette. 3. Sets and architecture. Helium and Zodanga cities, large partial sets for balconies, thrones, and palaces were merged with CG towers and moving platforms. Interiors mixed stone, bronze, and carved motifs, echoing classical and Middle Eastern forms reinterpreted for Mars. 4. Costume design. Designer Mace C. Rubio crafted costumes that merged pulpy romance and practicality. John Carter's gear drew from frontier and Roman influences. Dejah outfits combined regal draping with Barsoomian jewelry. Thark warriors' harnesses and ornaments were designed to complement their CG physiques. 5. Creatures and motion capture. The four-armed Tharks were performed by actors Willem Dafoe, Samantha Morton, Thomas Hayden Church, in performance capture rigs. Their towering, lean forms were animated by double negative and other VFX vendors. Wooler, Carter's loyal Callet, was a fully animated creature with expressive canine qualities. 6. Vehicles and technology. The airships, ornithopters, combined steampunk sensibilities with organic Martian curves. Miniatures were built for reference, while flight shots relied on digital modeling and compositing. Therns tech, glowing medallions, energy weapons, used subtle luminescence to distinguish their advanced origin. 7. Visual effects. Overseen by Peter Chiang and Andrew Whitehurst, VFX integrated thousands of shots, vast cities, battles, creatures, and atmospheric effects, dust storms, light variations. The film pushed then cutting-edge rendering to create believable interaction between actors and digital beings. 8. Cinematography. Dan Mindel shot in widescreen, 2.35:1, using warm, naturalistic light for desert exteriors and dramatic contrasts for palace interiors, emphasizing scale. 9. Music and sound. Score by Michael Giacchino, blending heroic brass themes with exotic percussion. Sound design enhanced the tactile quality of airships, Thark voices, and Barsoomian fauna. Memo overall impression. The production and design of John Carter aimed to immerse audiences in a retro-futuristic planetary romance. Earth scenes were grounded in Civil War-era Americana. Mars, Barsoom, a balanced pulp adventure with archaeological realism, filled with worn stone, alien crafts, and a believable ecology. Though the movie underperformed financially, its craftsmanship, sweeping landscapes, richly built civilizations, and seamless creature work, remains an impressive example of early 2010s large-format sci-fi world-building.
These are my personal insights and interpretations of John Carter, including favorite moments and characters. So, what I have to say about this film, as I mentioned before, is that I never caught it initially in theaters when it came out, right? But, this is a big something I go on at theaters them time, right? 2012, I think I can remember. And I didn't get the chance to go, but after that, just seeing, some random clips here and there on the internet and so on, I said, I definitely have to check this out to see what it's all about. 'Cause, you get hype in the theaters and sometimes it don't really pan out. And then I wasn't hearing the conversations that you usually would hear about certain movies. And having watched it, it's not bad at all. So let's get right into it, okay? So in the opening, we get a voiceover that introduces us to Barsoom, right? The red planet of Mars as we know it. And we are immediately introduced the city-states of Helium and Zadanga, who are waging war against one another, right? For some reason, one of them, right, Zadanga, gets a very crucial piece of equipment, right, a weapon of sorts from some weird beings during a battle. And these beings seem to be able to do some stuff, right? Like change them form, and they might be looking like what you expect, but at the same time they're not, because them kind of look humanoid, and them can basically shapeshift as how they choose and probably present themselves to the person who they're talking to directly, right? So these mysterious humanoids are the Therns, of course, and they are led by Matai Shang, who is able to manipulate events because it is almost as if he is giving them the weapon, give Zadanga the weapon to basically take over Helium with no mercy. Then we are thrown to Earth, where we can see it's 1881, right? As the title card read, I think. And Edgar Rice Burroughs, who is the nephew of John Carter, he is summoned to John Carter's estate, right? Where he mysteriously, we saw like a little mysterious movements, where like Carter write something and somebody was like watching him, right? And then now where basically I read something that he would have gotten from his uncle, which his uncle said only him alone, explicit instructions was left, right? Guys, if you have to do your will and name something, just make sure you have explicit instructions to whoever is it going to get the gold or whatever it is you have to give them, right? Because this is the coolest thing, right? Because the man give instructions, say this man, right, is the only one who can read it. And so basically him read it and him get to find out, say, Carter died suddenly, right? And then, you kind of get to see that little flash. I don't know if it's a flashback because it didn't really happen that way, but, yeah. Well, as we get to talk more about it, you'll see why I say what I say, right? So it begin to read a little bit more and him get to see, we as the audience also get to see from John Carter's perspective what is happening. And so the story begins basically where we see that John Carter is a former Confederate captain who him no want go back go fight no Confederate war. So through some serious crazy things going on, hightail it out of his company basically, and was trying to go on a quest to find gold, right? And some soldiers who are led by Colonel Powell, them attempt to recruit him, right? And of course, Carter refused, right? And he refused in many different ways, and and he keeps getting recaught, right? And I thought that was funny. Just him just continuing to escape their custody and get to a certain point and then them catch him back, right? And I think this was even the whole plot device, that it is a foreshadowing of what will happen to him, in Barsoom. So Carter finally escapes for the very last time, right? And him get pursued now by the soldier them and thing, and per horseback, and him ride hard, and them come upon the Apaches. And of course, for some of us who know a little bit about history, the Apaches and the soldiers of the Confederate Army don't have a good relationship. So, things like a pop off, if not handled properly. Now, John did there try to kind of, it looked like him understand how a little bit of the tongue, right, of the language. And he was trying to talk to the Apaches. And it didn't work out because when I soldier them must get kind of trigger happy and yeah, so them start to run down, the soldier them and thing, and John Afia ditch it, near to one cave, right? Right in a one canyon. One of the colonel actually get killed, and Carter finds one hidden cave of gold. So him finally find gold now, feel nice, right? Meanwhile, him there in a cave now, and he find the gold, one turn, sneak up on him now, and ready for stab him in him back. And him defend himself, and of course end up unalive in the turn, right? Now, him take up the medallion with the turn drop on the ground, as the turn was trying to utter the incantation or the words that activate the device. Right? I'm not too sure of how it works, but yeah, he hold on upon the medallion and he's suddenly finds himself waking up on in the middle of one desert. Right? At this point, him don't know same the palm Barsoom, or Mars, but him soon discover say he's not in Kansas anymore, right? Because him start for walk, and as him start for walk, him find that him can jump higher, right? And just by stepping, him basically a leap in the air. So of course, because of the lower gravity on Mars, that's basically what they're saying. He has the ability to walk and jump. So it's awkward. It's almost like a child learning to walk, right, or stand, and he is having a hard time for a little while. But he does see in a distance something being reflected off the sunlight, and so him heading towards it, right? And as he goes forward, he finds himself at a location that is eerily similar to the one on Earth in terms of the way how the formation of the hill is. But then he is soon realize I'm not alone, because some Tharks, which are some green-skinned, four-armed aliens who has their leader, Tartarchus. Tartarchus is the one that sees him jump, right? Because he was, trying to get away from them, right? Initially when him see. And so he basically was astonished and at the same time a little bit interested in John Carter because of that. So he basically take John Carter prisoner, right? Now, the location that they were was where the Tarks have their eggs, right? And they took all of the hatched ones, and we see them unaliving, right? The unhatched. So they capture John after he's knocked unconscious, right? When him reach, when they carry him to the town of the Tarks, I guess. Basically, they have all of the Tark babies being given away, like, all of the female Tarks that's come taking one, right? And we meet Tarkus' daughter, who he doesn't admit it, but John picks it up later on based on the behavior and the chemistry that they have, end up with John, right? So the daughter end up with John, and basically she have to take care of John. Now, a little bit of backstory into what is happening there with her is that I didn't really get at the first outing, but after rewatching, I realized, oh, so all of this was because she was different, or she thought differently. She had a different perspective from most of the other Tharks, right? And her father was trying to protect her because, the Thark culture is basically about strength and brute force, right? Acquiring things in the same manner, right? And she's a little bit more compassionate. She's a little bit more emotional, apparently. Now, even though John is not what she expected in, in something to take care of, right? She does take care of John. She gives him I don't remember what it was, but that thing of Barsoom, and basically can communicate now with them, right? Him understand them and they understand him, right? So, he even gets adopted by a Martian. You can call it's like a Martian dog, right? Because they make it very dog-like, right, and very puppy-like and stuff, and it follows John anywhere and everywhere that he goes, really fast, like split second, him jump up, and I try to escape, and it basically back him in every turn, right? Get her in a trouble by killing one of the Tharks with one blow. Man just knock out the Thark out cold. Yeah. But of course, it does lend credibility to Tartakus' earlier claim, because he was trying to get John to jump when they initially carried him to the town, and John wouldn't do it on command, knowing that is what he wanted to do, and say, no, me not do it, and he refused. So now, basically, Murphy disciplined him daughter because of way John do, right? And it was very difficult for him. You can see it, right? You can see it there, and as I say, upon rewatching for me, right? I don't know if it takes that long for you if you watch John Carter, but it never came out to me that easily. Like, it took a while for me to realize, oh, that is the reason why, and she doesn't have a space for another Mark, right? Which is, very much mentioned there, that, hey, that is what it is, right? And then we are introduced to Deja Thoris, who is a princess on Helium, right? And we see she was practicing a little speech to give to her Jedaks. And when she was interrupted by her father and some of the men from the court, I guess, coming in, and she was like, my Jedak, and them just cut it, that's not going to fly right now. We have other things to discuss, basically. So she was showing them that she was able to, because apparently she's very learned, and that's expected for a princess, right? Even one from Mars, right? She basically shows them how she is trying to harness the ninth ray, and Matai Shang is there listening, and when she tries to show them that it's something that's worth pursuing, and basically sabotage it, making her looking like, we don't know if that's going to even work. So, all right, let's just proceed with what is to happen, right? And basically, her father just dismisses everybody from the court, and have a little talk with her, and you can see that she knows something was coming, and she was like, what is it, father? And the father tell her, say, hey, you're going to have to be married to the brother from Zedanga, because Helium and Zedanga need peace right now. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Say that the peace treaty that they're going to sign, and they're going to sign it with their union, basically. And of course, she's like, is there no other way? You know what I'm saying? That can't be the only way, you know what I'm saying? And, she basically did look very upset. So what happens next? You would expect that from anyone. So back to John Carter, right? Because that's what the movie is about, right? He, after witnessing what happened with Tartakus and Sola, that's Tartakus' daughter, him say, and them start to have a big commotion where two ships, right, fighting basically one another, right? And the Turks, them get excited because it's almost like them basically just step on the sidelines and watch what go on, not really, thinking about the consequences of what is going on. Because I think about what it means when two sides are fight. And a Euro war that and a Euro fight, right? But John was very interested because he saw that these were humans, right, as compared to the Green Martians that him surrounded by now. And so, he's watching in total terrified look, on his face, and they were, they must say, who going to win and basically, betting basically. And then the princess end up falling out of our ship because, she was in the midst of battle and thing. And John springs into action, literally like spring up, him just jump because him, his body density different and stuff. So him basically fly and catch her, right? And then him basically enter the fray, fight and help, right? And him say her and him say, just stand behind me, and thing. And but then him have to stop because him couldn't defend against what was coming. But the princess was able to because, she have a weapon and thing. So she's like, perhaps you need to stand behind me, right? And she was so impressed with John and thing. She wanted him to fight for helium, right? Who wouldn't want him to fight for helium at this point, right? But John is not that type of brother. The selfless act for zero reward, right? Plus him have a cave of gold. So, him basically, snub her basically. Oh, I forgot to mention that the Tarks, having seen what Carter was able to do a while ago, Tartakas named John, because before them did get him name wrong because of translation. Him did say Virginia, and so tell him say he's from Virginia, and Tartakas call him Virginia. Right? We'll be right back after these messages. I was just an ordinary voice until this podcast became my Barsoom. No monetization, no empire funding it, just a love for sci-fi, leaping across worlds and hoping someone is listening. If this journey has taken you somewhere unexpected, share it with a fellow adventurer. Leave a comment. It's like planting a flag on a new ground, proof that you were here. Every listen, follow, and share helps keep this strange new world alive. Because sometimes, to find yourself, you have to travel to another world. So, now having seen that, them rename him to Dojar Sojat, which is basically an honor among their tribe, basically, right? And for be granted that honor as, a non-Thark is pretty rare. And when him bestowed that honor upon John, he thought that John would at least come around to, to understanding him, right? And understanding his position that he's in. But John was like, initially he was like, man, I doja soldier, but him take it, right? Now, little after that, now, Deja tell him about, some of the things Kaima tell her about the medallion and stuff, and she explained to him so that there is like a myth about the Therns and what, they're about and whatever. It's almost like they are elevated to God status, basically, right? On Mars, right? Even the Tharks worship the Therns because they have a temple dedicated to them. Now, of course, as an outsider, you're forbidden from going inside the temple. But of course, them get Solar, they carry them go there, and Solar can't take no more mark. So I got the Solar, she gonna die, right? Of course, and they give John Deja as a present, basically, because she, spoils of the war, basically. But yeah, John recognizing that Tartakus have a soft spot for Solar and stuff, him basically, see that and think him say it to him and thing, and on the day when it was going to be dealt with, basically, him say, boy, Tartakus, him I go deal with them himself, and basically set them free until John said, don't carry her back, right? And you know what happens when somebody tell you, say, don't do something. In a movie, it definitely gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? So John, Deja, and Sola, and the little, well, I wouldn't say little, but a big hell of a creature, you know what I'm saying, that is John, has John as a pet. It's not John pet, it has him as a pet, so it not gonna leave him side, right? And they travel through the desert and ruins and stuff, because Deja says that she has an idea of where she needs to go, but Deja end up carry them towards helium, and Solar realizes this, and Solar said to John, say, I don't think she carry you go the right way, because you know what I'm saying. So him said to her, say, all right, we'll play along and we're going to see what is what. And then we just see John does ride up on Deja and just take away the creature that she ride upon. It's almost like some beast of burden, where you ride upon like a donkey or a horse, but it's one of those creatures, right? And left her basically with just supplies and stuff, and say, him gone because you not help me out. So, you know what I'm saying? You not carry me down my cave of gold, which is what I want. Right? And she basically had, lament, and I said, boy, you have the power to do all these things, and you can't say you're going to help. You wouldn't even help. Basically, that's how she puts it, So they go. Eventually she comes around, and Kajan says she will come around, and she does. She takes them to the place where the Therns are. It's basically like a place where them take a pilgrimage, all of some other Tharks were there. Them rode on a boat and go right out into the middle, and them arrive at a stone, basically. Now Solar, being very grown up in the culture, she now go on venture no further. So she say, you two can go, but I not gonna do it. So the two of them, they go and find themselves inside of another similar type of cave like on Earth and thing. But this time there are some holographic schematics things going on and stuff. Deja says, boy, me need codices, me need all of the things that, archaeologists need in order to decode certain Asian language and so on. She mentioned, say, boy, she need them there for decode it. And Jana say, me not believe you, Me not believe it. But me please say you can do it, but you just don't want to do it because you want me go back at helium with you. Anyway, she is able to convince him, right? She was lying, of course. And but the fine say them have to go back to the Tharks, and they end up back in the Thark custody, because Tartakus, he was basically a prisoner now, so I'm no longer leader of the tribe. He has been dishonored because he was challenged by one of the brother where they did it, where that challenge him from long time still, and he lose this challenge. And him never expect to see John come back. And when him see John, him ready for rip John to shreds, because him say, yo, you promise me say you not come back. See, I told you they never keep them promise. Now Carter find himself forced to fight for his life and Tartarchus's and Solar's life in a ring, right? Now, and he's bound, right? He's bound with a shackle. And he have to fight against some white apes, some huge, gigantic, monstrous looking beasts. And guess what? He defeats them, but not too easily, of course, right? This, of course, enables him to rally the Tharks to his side, right? Because now the current leader of the Tharks is challenged by John, and John defeats him with one blow. Cut him, right? Cut off his head. And that rallies the Tharks to his side, and they now fight for and with John. Then right after that, now Deja and John get taken to Helium, and it is in Helium now where Deja have to get married to Sabthan. And of course, under the direction of Mate Shang, we see where that is going to take place. Now, John, him almost get away because him get help for escape being captured by the guards, and he meet up back with Deja, and she basically tell him exactly how him can power up the medallion and be able to get home and thing. And as she turn away for admit Sabtan because him recognize say the next place them gonna try go is to go there. She find that when she turned back around when in leave, John was nowhere to be seen. But actually what John did was he was hiding out in one of the scaffolding at the roof. So she had thought that he gone back home to Earth, you know. Now, soon after, John get caught by Matai Shang now, and it carry him go show what's going to happen to Deja as princess now that she agreed for married to Sabthan, and they have the wedding procession and everything, and him a watch everything, but him can't do anything because Matai Shang use something constrict him talking and and his muscles so him can't jump or nothing like that. Him can't escape. So guess who comes to the rescue now? It's John's owner. Right? So the beast that I'm talking about, the dog that he has basically comes to his rescue, right? For him to get out of the constraint and stuff. And so he tries to fly off one of the flying machines that they have. Is almost like one of them flying bike, right? And it literally have wings, right? I'm not even sure how it actually operates, but yeah, he's able to get it off the ground and stuff, and get it barely flying and thing, and he's able to get himself out of that situation, right? And away from Matai Shang for now, right? What was very interesting though was the way how Matai Shang basically laid out the plan to John, say, this is something will have to happen, and would really not do much, all we're doing is just accelerating, putting our foot on the gas, basically, of what is going to happen eventually, because this, your species, and him talk as if he's a different type of alien, right? Although him look humanoid, are prone to war, and him recognize say he's from Earth, and that they basically know about Earth and how Earth history look and stuff. It bound to happen there as well. So it's almost like a threat, in a shadow of a way, if I say, just know say no matter what gonna happen here, so I go definitely happen there so at some point. Right? And all empires gonna fall eventually. Something to that effect, basically. So after John gets away, as I said before, and he's able to meet up back with the Tharks, and him get help, and rally up the troops them, right? And when rally up the troops them and basically say, all right, we're gonna go now and we're going to go to Helium, right? Because we have to stop the wedding here now, because the wedding here I go, happen and thing and so when they reach Zadanga now, then realize it empty, right? And when he asks one of the guard them what happened to everybody gone and heal them himself for the wedding. They say, right it, all right, we need to get over there. How we gonna get over there? We need to get some airships and fly to Helium. Tartaka say, yo, talks not flying a bossy. I don't know what you talk about. Right? Carter say, boy, me will fly go. Right? Me go on my own. Me have to definitely get this done. Carter enter the Zadangan city and him defeat the army and thing. Right? He's able to also defeat Sabthan, right? And of course Matai Shang escape, right? Very, very quickly and thing. Not before John is able to retrieve back the medallion because he would have lost it previously, right? And they talk them, as I said before, them said they're not fly, but they did help out by flying their asses over to help, right? Which is what allowed for that victory that they had. And then, of course, what you think would have happened next, right, would be Carter gets the girl, right, and married, becomes a prince of Helium, right? And we see where, Carter is almost like he might think about what his life would be on Earth, almost like he might return. And they just, basically a talk to him and thing, and him say, I soon come back to bed, I soon come to bed and thing. And him take the medallion and him throw it. Because of course, again, him being on Mars, him have the ability to throw it far, right? And he does throw it a good distance. And the dog that him have, probably can't reach it and stuff. And you think that would be the end of it, right? No, that's not the end. What happens is that as he's about to go back to bed, Shang reveals himself, giving Carter no time to react. Him send him back to Earth. Carter wake up basically covered in dust and dirt, as if he's been there for quite a while, right? Which makes sense based on the theory that was given that his body was basically copied over to Barsoom. So the body that's on Earth was left there, covered in dust basically. And so he embarks on this mission. So we'll go back to the beginning of the film where we saw where he was basically writing that note. So what led up to that was basically him planning out how he's gonna return, right, to thing there. So him say, in the note, he basically I tell him nephew, say, boy, when him come back, him go on him journey and trying to find, the thing and, one day out of the ordinary and find it. And I thought that story was a little bit mysterious when he, when I first heard it. And then right after that, because it never take long, right after that, it is revealed because the nephew now goes to, save his uncle, thinking that him uncle they in the mausoleum now, right? And thing, but only for him to lay a trap for one of the Therns that is on Earth that is watching him. So yeah, the trap spring basically when the nephew end up at the mausoleum, open the mausoleum, and there is the Thern there ready to kill John, because they would think his body is there because they think he's back on Barsoom. But him not there. And him nephew was confused. And the third was confused until John turns up and kills the third and takes his medallion. And then him turn around to him nephew and him said, "Thank you for all you've done. I'm going inside." Thing and him say, "No, me really need it." I was like, "Yeah, I know me really need it." I mean, that was like a total wipeout. I wasn't expecting that at all. Watching this movie, just, yeah. And, it's so happens that this is a novel, right? A book. So, if I want to find out more about John Carter's life and his adventures, it would definitely have to be going, into the book and thing, you know. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just stunned. Up to this time of recording, I'm still stunned at the way how it ended. I'm telling you. So that's it for my analysis and interpretations. What did you think? So here are my theories about unresolved mysteries and some plot points. There was one major thing that stood out for me was John Carter as a symbol of redemption, right? And though he is, and I'm gonna say he's a white man, right? Portrayed as a white man in this film, I can look at it and say that it would be something that would definitely speak volumes about how certain people look at themselves, right? And I'm not saying that all white people are the same. I'm just saying that the people who decide who is white or black or whatever, their motives for making the portrayal the way it is was definitely geared at a particular sentiment, right? Especially with the way how he was definitely a Confederate soldier, right? The fact say he won gold. So, they kind of humanize him, make him seem like he was less than a hero. So, it kind of not made it better, but it kind of brought him less of that Mary Sue thing that most persons would understand. Someone who can't do wrong, you know, but he does. He repeatedly makes mistakes and end up having to learn from it or go through the situations, right? And it is because of the way how it ended with his personal redemption, which is what makes us recognize and empathize with find his new purpose after trauma and loss where him go through, because him did go through a lot. Barsoom is a reflection of Earth, right? And especially because we have warring city-states and social factions. This is a definite mirror of what is happening with Earth, right? With our conflicts and politics and imperialism. And so this movie is definitely an allegory for the futility of war and unity. But that is where we need to be. Now, the Therns actually have a great role as puppet masters, right? Because they represent a manipulative, overarching force that is looking to exploit the weaker for control, right? Which invoke some classical themes of divine intervention kind of thing and abuse of power, right? And then there is technology versus nature. So there is obviously a conflict between the advanced weaponry and the martial tribal traditions, which symbolize there's a tension between wanting to have progress and a certain level of preservation, especially with the fact say Tartaka say Tharks don't fly, right? And they later on find themselves in a situation where they have to learn to fly, right? In order for them to be able to move to the next level. And then there's the influences of bone density and the gravity. And of course, I had to mention this, right? Because it seems like Carter's superhuman abilities are due to the Martian gravity. At least that's what they're trying to explain, right? It has a lot of questions around that, but I'll just leave it at this, that it's just mainly there serving that plot device functionality, because there is so much that would have to go into this and to have the kind of result for have John Carter being able to do what he does and do it the way how he does. Yeah. But it's mostly there to just emphasize, this a guy here, no normal, right? He's not the normal Jedak. So there are some few little mysteries and plot points I have to talk about. One of them being the medallion, right? Because its full powers and origins aren't fully explored. And of course, because of the limits of the film and because of what it was trying to portray. I'm not sure if the book continued, or what can be garnered from that, but based on what I see in the film, there is a lot to be desired in terms of where it come from, how the Therns them use it, what is its full potential. Yeah, because I don't see it as just being something that they use to just move from here to there, right? And maybe John could have tapped into it, just like how they tap into it to travel, to also disguise himself from who he chooses, right? And then there is John's fate on Earth, right? After he has been sent back to Earth from Barsoom, by the man. So the film end with us seeing that John is about to use the next medallion, right? That he was able to get off of a Thern that he killed again, right? But we don't know whether or not he is able to use it. Could it be a case where, because I think they are a smart enough race, the Therns, possibly they're going to have to, they would find a way to change the password to such a technology, right? Sort of the passphrase, I should say, right? So it doesn't just immediately work for you, you know, I would think, knowing that they know that he did use it to do what he did before, him could do it again, right? He could, what I'm saying? Probably them don't think say him would find another Therns to get a medallion from, but possibilities are endless, right? And then there is Sola's role and her hidden abilities. So, her tendency, as I said before, is to empathize. She has compassion, and she seems to also have a way to probably psychically, but it's not fully explored in the film or even mentioned. The one little part where she just kind of does seem to be able to talk to John and tell him say, may I basically give you the voice, so you can be able to understand what's going on Barsoom, so yeah, there's a lot to be desired there. And then finally, the power structure the of Barsoom, because there are some intricacies of Barsoom's kingdoms, the alliances and the balance of power between Helium and Zodanga, which them just kind of just touch on, right? Just for the sake of tossing in the conflict, but you don't get to see anything else. You don't see how they function, right? What's their trade like? What was their treaty before the war? That sort of thing, right? So, as it is, John Carter, as I said, is a solo film. There is no follow up. And so, if they were to do a follow up sometime in the future, these are some of the things that they definitely need to consider, right? Because what they've created here is something quite special because it is very immersive. It's rich with space fantasy, bringing some old world elements, historical stuff, the war, and all of that, and put it side by side, And as you know, on this podcast, we're all about things that mirror reality, and this one really did do its job to mirror reality. Yeah. So share your theories, whether you agreed with my theories or what fans are saying about the film. Drop them in the comments. This episode, we adventured to the Red Planet in John Carter. Based on how the movie went, it definitely mirrored, as I mentioned, reality with all the things that are going on in the atmosphere as at the time of this recording. You have to wonder what will break the camel's back. But I don't want to be so pessimistic about things. I want to be able to say we as a human race, we can find our differences, set them aside, and decide what is best for the whole. We can't just be out here complaining about all the bad things, all the worst things, without acknowledging that we need to look at where things are stemming from and how we can make a difference. Because if we just sit by and allow things to happen to us, we are no better than the people who start the problem in the first place. They started the problem because they didn't see anything wrong with what they were doing, but they were confident enough to do it. And if we don't step up and recognize that it just takes each of us just stepping up, pushing forward to make a difference. Neither of us are prophets, and we don't know if things will get better, get worse, or go another way. But what we do know is that currently there are people fighting and they need help and support in the direction of peace, right? And peace is not about just setting down weapons and singing the song Give Peace a Chance. No. Or Kumbaya. No. It's about peacefully engaging people and letting them know them bullshit, calling them out. Not in a way that attacks who they are, but attacks the ideas, the bad ideas that they're putting out there. Because at the end of the day, one bad idea is worse than one good action. So support where you see it needs the most, but recognize that whatever you do, it is for better. It's for peace. And if you can't recognize that, then you're on the wrong team. That is it. That brings us to the end of this episode. Our voyage through the universe of sci-fi television continues, and the next destination is 2,000 downloads. Your support means everything. Stay engaged, share your thoughts, and let's keep this journey alive. Until next time, stay curious. This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.